Today on Locked On Rockies. Well, it's no secret, folks. The Dodgers, they be doing Dodger things. And instead of just focusing on good or bad for baseball, we got to focus on the Rockies coming up with a plan.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 21st day in the year 2025. I am your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day. Free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies, just like so many of you have been all season and off season long. We're going to be reading some of those comments later in the show. So as always, if you want to have your comments read during the show, head on over to the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section. Like those videos, subscribe to the channel so you're making sure you're staying up to date with all things Locked On Rockies. Today, we're also going to discuss the Dodgers adding, and what it means for the Rockies and what it means for baseball in general. That's today's episode. We're going to dive into all that and more. But before we do, got to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And from the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets. If you win your first bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, Dodgers today sign another closer. Kirby Yates heads over there and starts signing, and that just adds to the long list of players that the Dodgers have added this offseason. Sasaki, of course, ending up with the Dodgers as well, along with just seems like basically the entire free agent class. And so, initially, and when I see this stuff, we're at a point where it's easy and kind of the obvious answer to just throw your hands up, right? And just kind of and be really frustrated and really turned off by the entire idea and the entire concept of it as well. When people have issues with the super teams, when they have issues with teams' abilities to bring in high talent and a high level talent and a lot of that high level talent, well, then, it's, I don't know if I don't want to say just jealousy, but there's a lot of elements that go into that. There's a lot of feelings that go into that. And of course, I want to sit here and I'm furious that the Dodgers have gotten better and it's annoying. But all in all, I think what I come down to is, why is it just the Dodgers? Are the Dodgers really in that? And for some teams, the answer is obviously yes. But for all of those other teams, we've heard a lot about the Blue Jays being involved in players, the Red Sox, and these other owners and these other teams. Yet they're not doing the big money. They're not spending big. I mean, sheesh, the Yankees couldn't even bring back Juan Soto, and Soto goes to another New York team that's not opposed to spending big money. My question more does go back to, why aren't other teams doing more? And this doesn't even focus on the Rockies. The Rockies aren't in the financial situation as some of these other teams and don't have the same benefits, and that goes for, a good chunk of the rest of the league as well. There are different levels of ownership and money within the ownerships. But I kind of just think the Dodgers are taking advantage of the big name teams, the big market, the big money makers. I think they're kind of taking advantage of them being a little cheap, being a little bit more of penny pinchers. I mean, what the Dodgers are essentially doing, it just reminds me of when the Yankees were the ones bringing in everybody. When they were doing all that stuff when I was growing up, of course you'd get mad and you poke holes and you justify all this stuff. But ultra wealthy people own baseball teams, and ultra wealthy people can invest more in those baseball teams. Pretty interesting that the A's are starting to spend money now that there's pressure on them because they have to, and they're making all these changes and yada yada yada. So I kind of get more to the question of, why is it just the Dodgers? What is the Dodgers TV deal that good that it's better than the Yankees, that it's better than the Mets, that it's better than every other team in baseball? And that might be the case. But it's the Yankees are one of the most valuable brands in the entire world of all time. Yet they keep losing out. The Mets have an owner that's willing to throw and spend money at a whole bunch of stuff, yet they can't keep pace with the Dodgers. But it's deeper than that too. I mean, people want to play for the Dodgers, people want to be in that organization, but I just zoom out and say, why don't these teams spend more money? Why aren't these owners more aggressive in certain areas, in certain situations, and in certain markets? Sure, you're not going to be able to spend and do the same level of stuff that the Dodgers are always going to be able to do, but you can't get Kirby Yates. You can't make an interesting deal to steal Teoscar Hernandez away from them. You can't flex a little bit of your international spending to bring Sasaki to your team. Why does it feel like to me that the rest of the owners and the rest of baseball are kind of just putting their hands up and saying, well, what can we do? When in reality, I do feel like there are teams and owners that can make some moves. Why are the Blue Jays connected to everything, yet they can never get a deal done? Why are they willing to spend, up to this amount of money for one player, but then when the deal gets there, they can't get it done? Why aren't the Yankees outbidding everybody like they used to? Why aren't these other teams? Why aren't these teams that have legacy stuff and good solid media control or market share and market control in their areas? Why aren't they spending more? And again, you could say the contracts are way too much, the money's too much, overvalue. Look at the Chris Bryant deal, XYZ, all totally valid. But that's kind of but what I'm keep coming back to this conversation is, as much as I'm disappointed and frustrated as a Rockies fan watching the Dodgers continue to add and grow into a bigger machine, it's an issue. But is it an issue that we can just pin and say, man, the Dodgers are the big problem? Or are the Dodgers just sitting there saying, this is what we're willing to invest in our team. This is what we're willing to spend in order to be this dominant force. This is what we're willing to do. So why aren't other teams that can have similar options do the same type of things? And again, it's not like every team has the same options. It's not like the Twins can go out and be the same type of team that the Dodgers or the Athletics or the NL Central. But I guess minus the Cubs, really, because it's the Cubs. That is true. That I do just go back to there are these legacy teams, there are these legacy markets. Yet I'm just kind of tired of the ultra wealthy just kind of throwing their hands up and saying, nothing I can do to help you out. And I'm talking about the ultra wealthy owners. I mean, same thing. Should Philly not be a team that thinks that they have a shot at bringing in big name free agents? Are they really going to just sit there and continue to allow a National League rival to get better and better and better and better and better every year? Eventually, these other teams are going to have to step in and start stepping up with their wallets. And the teams that can't get on there, the teams that aren't in the same stratosphere when it comes to money, they're going to have to get creative. They're going to have to look at different things. They're going to have to look at the state of baseball differently. And that area directly connects to the Colorado Rockies. And I'm going to explain what I mean here coming up next on this episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, folks, got to let you know about the folks that help make this show possible. And that includes Rocket Money. Rocket Money is going to help you save money. And man, is that not the best? you can save money on subscriptions that you forgot about, or maybe ones that you're even paying for twice. Crazy to think, but yes, it does happen. Rocket Money makes it so easy to track down all your subscriptions and more. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, then guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here. Free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and all that good stuff. Make sure you head over to the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, subscribe in there, being part of the show, the easiest way to be part of the show, firing up your Rockies hot takes in the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section. And of course, for your second listen of the day, Locked On MLB, our pal Sully has got you covered. Okay, so Dodgers, of course, they're adding, they're spending big, they're doing all this stuff. And there's a certain team in the division that is pretty far behind this team in a lot of ways, and that's our beloved Colorado Rockies. So my response and my answer to this, and when I see the this huge turnaround, it's not really a big turnaround. Dodgers have been an interesting when it comes to bringing in players for a while, but when I see these past few years and it's just Dodgers, adding, and all that stuff, my jealousy as a Rockies fan is certainly on the surface. You're like, oh, yeah, I wish the Rockies could bring in these top-level players. I wish the Rockies had the sway, the money, the influence, and everything to bring in the best in the business from not only within Major League Baseball, but outside of it on the international game as well. But deeper than that, it's, okay, so what are you doing as an organization to fight back? Just like I was saying in the first segment there about there's all these other, owners and all these other teams that in reality could do more spending, could be teams that are more aggressive, could use their resources to add more talent. The Rockies aren't one of those teams. The Rockies aren't going to be a team that has one of some of the most money in baseball. They're not a team that is going to excel in a lot of categories that is going to give you a lot of revenue in order to do these things. This is where it goes back to the creativity. This is where it goes back to finding new ideas. The Rays, the Devil Rays, remember how long of a joke they were and how long that they were just the worst team in the AL East, right there with the Orioles from time to time, depending on the eras and things like that. And then I know it hasn't panned off on the big stage, but the Rays have become a competitive team year after year because they took a completely different approach to the game of baseball than other teams. They looked at it differently. They studied the finances differently because they were taking their unique situation. They were really buying into the game of analytics. So and to compete with the Yankees and the Red Sox. I mean, when we're talking about history of teams that spend big, does it really get any bigger than Yankees, Red Sox, and now the Dodgers? So while the Rockies can't just copy and paste the Rays model, you have to start thinking like the Rays. You have to start thinking of the creative ways that you can be the team that upsets those division stalwarts, those dominant division players. Or else it's going to be even longer until the Rockies' first division crown. It's going to be more struggles against the division. Remember, the Rockies aren't just bad against everyone else. They're especially bad against their own division. And their own division has the best team in baseball that continues to add and add and add and add. Whereas this Rockies offseason, coming off back-to-back 100 losses, we have minor league deals, and that's about it. with Estrada being the only exception so far of I believe the only major league deal the Rockies have signed this offseason. Where is the creative approach? What are the Rockies trying to pinpoint and focus on that's going to allow them to compete with the Dodgers? Can this team find that thing? That's the big question. That's the evaluation I want to see from the Rockies as they go through this and as they experience this and as they continue to try and figure out how they're going to compete with this team, because it ain't stopping anytime soon, folks. The Dodgers aren't stopping anytime soon. There's no reason to stop. They continue to have the best or one of the best lineups in baseball. They have the money. They have the influence. So what do? Do you just fall back on your heels and just run it back doing the same thing that you've done over and over and over again, like the Rockies are doing? Or do you get creative? Do you find ways to get yourself out of the basement? Do you look to different options? Do you look at different, coaching staffs, philosophies, approaches, players? Throughout this entire stretch of Dodgers dominance in the NL West, with the exception of the playoff seasons there with the back-to-back playoff years and almost winning the division there in those years, when have the Rockies really ever responded to what the Dodgers are doing? And when have the Rockies ever really responded to what anyone else in the NL West is doing? If you're fans, I was seeing some tweets and stuff like this, these fans of these other teams are frustrated too in the NL West because it's so hard to win, and you're a team that can be a wild card or playoff caliber team record wise. I mean, I would say that both at the start of the season, the Giants, the Diamondbacks, and the Padres all have good shots to make the playoffs because of their abilities as a team. Yet they still haven't been able to overcome the issues of the Dodgers. But I want to put the little asterisk there. Remember that the Padres have been the team that have given the Dodgers hell for a while and have done so in the playoffs and were very close to doing it again last year. The Diamondbacks, I believe, on their way to the World Series, they had to take down the Dodgers. Other teams in the NL West are finding ways to get better, are finding ways to beat the Dodgers. But you can't say that about the Rockies. And it's not just of hoping that these players and hey, we're really hoping that this guy breaks out. We're really hoping that this guy does this thing or blah, 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 blah. It's deeper than that. It's deeper as an organization. It's deeper because this team is facing a ridiculous crisis in the sense of the rest of not only the baseball, but the division is leaving you so far in the dust. Yet the answer is to dig your heels in deeper and say, this is it. What we're doing is working. So that's what's going to be the big frustrating thing, I think, watching the Rockies play the Dodgers and really the NL West in general next year, is that while the Dodgers are using their resources and influence and power to do it their way, other teams are figuring out how they can be creative to beat that team, how they can use what they have, how can they do things, what players can they add on on other deals, what players do they need to get more of so they can beat those guys, beat the Dodgers while not being on the same level financially. The Rockies are the team that just looks like they've given up in the chase against the Dodgers and just hoping for it to be a down year for the team, for another team, for them to be able to rise up and fill in and not make it a consistent thing. I think this team has to show that it can find the weaknesses, find something small, find something interesting about the Dodgers and exploit it and try to be successful at it. Because right now, throughout the entire season and has been for a while, on paper, the Dodgers completely outmatched the Colorado Rockies. So what are you going to do as an owner to combat that? What are you going to do as an owner of a team in order to get that first division title? What are you going to do to adjust and adapt to the moves that the Dodgers are making? And that question goes to everyone in baseball. So is it bad for baseball what the Dodgers do? There are elements of it that harm baseball, certainly. But if we just sit here and put the focus solely on, oh, look at what the Dodgers are doing, look at what the Dodgers are doing, look at how unfair it is, look at how unfair it is, why aren't we asking the question of why aren't other teams being more competitive to build and better their roster? Why aren't their teams more willing to spend a little bit more or spend big to get players in the door that make your team better and make fans more interested? That's my biggest question. It just does on at the same time, it highlights how uneven the playing field is in baseball as well. There are plenty of haves and have-not teams when it comes to resources, influence, and capital to spend on signing players. There should be a way to make that more fair. I don't have the answer for that. Because why, if you're the Dodgers, would you stop doing what you're doing? If everybody wants to play for you, you're okay with signing the deals that you're signing and spending the money that you're spending. Why would you ever stop? Why would you stop when you have the power, you have the influence, you have the control? Why would you? You wouldn't. So I can see why that's where you're thinking, like, we need to get some sort of ruling, some sort of thing to get in the way to stop this. But I think to stop the Dodgers, other teams, other owners have to step up and stop the Dodgers. And it also includes the Rockies. It takes the smaller teams being creative and smaller market teams, even though you know how I feel about market size and putting Colorado in there. But you have to find the ways to be creative. You have to find the ways to win. And right now, the Dodgers are saying, what's an easy way to win for us? Spending big and using our influence to bring the best names in business to our team. Why aren't other teams doing that as well? Why aren't big money guys not spending big money to help their teams? That's my question. And maybe I'm missing it. Maybe I'm off balance here. Maybe I'm missing the point. You can let me know in the comment section below, as well as your thoughts on what's going on with the Dodgers and how it impacts the Colorado Rockies. But we're going to read some of your comments from the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about our friends at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite home team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. So, again, let me know your thoughts on the Dodgers here, what you think is going on. I'm curious what your takes are. Let's see here. Let's go through the... let's see. Rockies player that PB29 is confident in, Hunter Goodman. Bobby says, as impactful as he was next year, what, am I having a stroke? I'm a rambler sometimes, and sometimes the words get jumbled. So that is a fair criticism there. Sesame Seed says, Paul, thanks for this pod. As a Rockies fan, we are used to very poor projections and our fan favorite players getting no respect outside of the fan base. But as every spring rolls around, it's always exciting to see the purple pinstripes once again and be as hopeful as possible for an exciting competitive season. As far as I know, the projections going into 2007 weren't great, but we all know, as Rocks fans, that is something we can always be optimistic for. Thank you for your realistic optimism for my Rockies. I try to be. I try to be realistic. I try to ground myself, and what I think about as fans might not be as big a deal for others, might be a bigger deal for other fans as well. So I appreciate that. And hey, until we have reasons the Rockies will probably beat us down sooner rather than later. Let's enjoy I always enjoy the new opening of a new baseball season, coincides with the new year, all kind of, fresh type of stuff, fresh opportunity. So hanging in there with the optimism, Sesame Seed, I'm with you. Finn says, now with Sasaki on the Dodgers, we can blatantly see the Dodgers are the super team. Some kids make an MLB the show God Squad in real life. I believe that what the MLB should start feeding for is teams to press owners to make their teams the best they can, so the Major League Baseball season and playoffs can be as competitive as possible, and that could look different in a lot of different ways. But when you look around the league now, in the postseason, you'll have a couple of new teams, but you see some of the same faces year in and year out of the postseason. It would be fun to constantly see new teams in the postseason, both on the NL and AL sides, and for there to be less blowouts because it's so competitive seeing games go to 3, 5, and 7. Also, just as a side note, the next World Baseball Classic, they should just rename Team Japan as Dodgers 2.0. That's pretty funny. Yeah, it's frustrating. And again, it just is. How much emphasis is baseball going to give? How much how much ruling and how much influence can they actually have? Salary caps, salary floors, stuff that has certainly been discussed time and time again for baseball, but doesn't seem to have a lot of steam amongst the ownership there. So how much power is Major League Baseball really going to flex here in order to bring about some change or do anything to stop the Dodgers? I don't know, because there hasn't been any inkling that they're going to get in the way of the Dodgers anytime soon. J-Rod says, giving up on the Jays, becoming a new Rockies fan. Okay, welcome in. I think the Jays are still going to be a more fun team, and they certainly are at least in the running for big names during the offseason. It doesn't seem like they can sign them there, but hey, thanks for tuning into the show, and welcome to Rockies fandom. It's a rocky road, but it's a fun one. Matthew says, you know who can steal bases, who's shown in the minor leagues that he's a real threat? Zach Veen should be able to steal 30 bags. I'm rooting hard for him to have a good spring and force his way on the major league team. I think that's a great point. I think Zach Veen, it would be really great to see him, a guy that a couple years ago, I mean, the hype was unbelievable. I mean, we were really getting pumped up, the stuff that was coming with Veen, but has, injuries, mixture of things getting in the way. But I agree. I think I'm really rooting for Zach Veen as well. I really would like to see him make an impact and take a shot at getting that starting right field spot. Again, I've preached it time and time again. If you have base stealing in your toolkit, if you're a speedster, if you're someone that can be aggressive and nab bases, that's going to help the Rockies big time. If the Rockies can start setting themselves up for runners in scoring position and scoring opportunities time and time again, it's going to pan out even with their struggles on offense. If they can get the ball in play with runners in scoring position, they're going to be able to score. And if Veen can contribute to that on both the offensive side, on both the batting side and the base running side, then that's a huge win. Zach Veen is certainly one of the players to watch this spring to see how it goes and how things turn out for him as we continue to go through a season here where who knows exactly who will be the big breakout star. But plenty of time to figure that out there, and really would be, like I said, I'm rooting for Veen as well. Hopefully seeing some good things there in the season to come. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, make sure that you're heading over to the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, subscribing there, and firing off your Rockies hot takes in the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section. Folks, for your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB. And if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs, all free and streaming on your favorite streaming services as well. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.